Hello again, football fans. We have more breaking news coming around this afternoon on a Saturday. Um, the New England Monarchs are losing head coach and general manager James Ramos. So, story that just broke a couple minutes ago. You may or may not have seen the news break. Alex at RFL Focus broke the news a little bit earlier, literally within the last hour. And the New England Monarchs will be without the services of Coach Ramos. So to discuss a little bit more, I've got Alex here at RFL Focus to come on and join me. Alex, obviously, you were the first one to break this story. We are fresh into it here. So, what can you tell me about Ramos deciding to step down as the coach and general manager of the New England Monarchs?
Yeah, it came as a shock to me as well. It just seemed like I don't know really. The Monarchs were off to a strong start. It just seemed like maybe it didn't fit into his schedule. I'm not necessarily sure what it was for him, but I think even with his absence, I think the Monarchs will still be able to almost squeeze into the playoffs. Still, I really do think they're a strong team, and I like the additions that he was able to make while he was still there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you brought it up. It is a bit of a surprise, and you mentioned the strong start. They started the year 2-1. So I guess the question here is, obviously, I believe the reasons are personal reasons, right? Like just for whatever whatever they might be. Obviously, everybody has different things going on in life. So personal reasons are causing Coach Ramos to step down from his role as the GM of the Monarchs. But also, we have to remember that he still does have the player that is in the volcanic locker room in Chicago that right now. So, maybe taking a little bit more focus to put on his player and still being a part of the league, but just not in the capacity of a GM. So the 2-1 record, is this something that they can withstand? Like, I guess they can continue to build upon, because historically the Monarchs are not a team that we're used to talking about when we're talking about playoff teams. We're talking about teams with continued success. So this 2-1 start, a lot of teams are in that 1-2, 2-1 area. Can the Monarchs keep this up?
Yeah, like how I spoke on earlier, I do think they're off to a pretty strong start. As of right now, they're actually the third seed in the NRC and actually have the division lead in the NRC East over the Steamers. So not only that, but I was looking down at their next 5 games, right? So they're going to go in Orlando to the Sentinels, then they come back home to face the Gunners. They stay home to face the Elks, then they go to Memphis to face the Steamers, and then they finish off at LA to face the Crusaders, which I think is a pretty moderate schedule, right? I think best case scenario, I don't think they'll beat the Steamers in Memphis, right? But I do think, do they win 4 of those 5 games? They're already off to what, a 6-2 start, and that's well on track for the playoffs.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the schedule. I hadn't looked at it too much, but you're right. Obviously, on the road against the Sentinels, let's just say that maybe the Sentinels get the better of them there. So now they're at 2-2. That Gunners game is at home. I think they could win. So to your point, let's give them a win there. That's now 3-2. And then the Elks game, they could certainly win. That gets them to 4-2 going into the bye, right? So week 7,
Right.
they'll have their bye. And then it gets a little bit tricky, because then you've got, if you're 4-2 going into the bye, that's nice, right? Everybody would take, I'll take a 4-2 record going into week 7. But then coming out of that, you've got at the Steamers, at the Crusaders. And then later in the season, you get the Steamers again, at the Snowhawks, the Condors, which, they looked pretty good against the Miners. So, we don't know what they are. And then they end the year at the Dreadnought. So I guess, do you think that this is the year the Monarchs make the playoffs?
Yeah, I could absolutely see them making the playoffs. So I think with how their division is shaped out, I think they squeeze right into a wild card spot. If not, they don't win a division. I don't know how that'll turn out with the Steamers if they end up sweeping the Steamers. If they 1-1, they split it. if they go 0-2. Either way, though, I really do think they have a great shot to make a wild card spot.
All right. And so when you look at this team, right, if you're saying that they have a legitimate shot to make the postseason, which I'm pretty sure they've never done, they've never made the playoffs, I believe. They were one of 3 teams, I think, that haven't made the playoffs. I could be wrong.
Well, the Monarchs, no, the Monarchs made it last year, didn't it? Against the
Did they?
Thunderbirds. Yeah.
Okay, so then it wasn't them. The Tigers, and there's a couple other teams. But historically, the Monarchs are not one of those teams that we would consider to be a juggernaut. You wouldn't talk about them in the same breath as you would like the Thunderbirds or the Explorers or the Steamers, some of those teams, the Voyagers even. So if they are going to take that next step, and I mean, you're talking about them potentially even winning the division, which I think people in Memphis would call you crazy to suggest that. However, let's just say it's a possibility. In order for that to happen, and in order for the Monarchs to get to that point, there's got to be guys on this roster that have to step up, right? There's got to be somebody that steps up outside of just the quarterback position that's going to get them there. And so when you look at this team, and you said, contending for a wild card spot, maybe even, if things line up correctly, winning the division, I think that's crazy talk. But again, hey, you never know. Who is it on this team that you feel has to take that step to get them to that level?
Right. So, of course, outside of Preston Stroder, right, we talked about him, 5 touchdowns, 3 picks on the season, just okay. I think that Monarchs running back room with Donovan Rhodes being as young as he is, as good as he is, I think needs to be a leader on that offense, right? You need your younger wide receivers to step up. Montrell Lancena, he's aging, of course, what now, 31, I believe, still getting production out of him, but he's aging. And just need younger guys in that core to really step up and show who they are. And then you were about to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. And then you have, of course, Markel Wilcox. That was the move that I really did like from who was it?
With the Cougars. They made that move with the Cougars.
Yeah, with the Cougars, right. I like him from Chicago. Veteran on the defense, especially with Levi Mack now on the trade block, right? I think if you're gonna leave out that big of an impact player on the defense, you bring in another one from the secondary. So he has to be more of a vocal and defensive leader for them as well.
Yeah, I think that you touched on the Markel Wilcox trade, and I think that's a big element of this team, the way that they're constructed. Because if you make that move to acquire Markel Wilcox, then what you're telling me and what you're telling your fan base is that you're trying to get to that level right now, right? You don't give up a first-round draft pick and acquire a 26-year-old free safety if you don't feel like you're contending and you're trying to make the playoffs right now, right? Because otherwise, you want that first-round draft pick. You don't want to give up a first-round draft pick. So clearly the Monarchs feel like they could make moves, they could make waves and get to the postseason. And so to your point about guys needing to step up, and you named some of those guys, Levi Mack being on the trade block, I don't envision Levi Mack getting traded, because right now he's the best member of that linebacking core. And how can you can't sell me on trying to make the playoffs by acquiring Markel Wilcox and then turn around and trade away Levi Mack, right? Like, I think in order for this team to have maximum amount of success this season, those two guys have to be on the team. And to even take it a step further, if I'm the Monarchs, and tell me if you agree or disagree, if I'm the Monarchs, I am looking at other teams in the RFL that might have guys on the trade block that are maybe, 28, 29, 30, 31, but they could come in right away and be key contributors and help this team get to the postseason and maybe make a run through the postseason. Like, I feel like that's the move they need to make. They need to be looking at the trade block and maybe trying to add pieces Like, you've already sold off your first round draft pick, so why not look at some of your younger guys and try to get some veterans to help you make a run at it right now? What do you think about that?
Absolutely, yeah. I think even with the veterans, I think you could go just a step below that with just a little bit of some younger guys that still have room to develop. So not only would you have the chance to win now, but even in the future, you're setting yourself up for future success as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting. Obviously, tough news this afternoon. Coach Ramos of the New England Monarchs is stepping down from his role as coach and general manager. That is effective immediately, I believe. We might have more on that later tonight on the RFL podcast. But again, big news, big shockwaves around the NRC this afternoon, as we have lost one of our own, as us in the head coach and general manager world like to say. Coach Ramos stepping down from his role with the New England Monarchs. Alex at RFL Focus. If you guys aren't following him, be sure to do so. Broke this story this afternoon, so I appreciate you coming on, Alex. And we'll have more, I'm sure, possibly even later this afternoon. More stories developing, and we'll have them for you guys as they come available. So be sure to tune in. And Alex, thanks again.
Of course.
Take care, everybody.